Good morning. Welcome back into Wake Up America. Midterms now a month away. Crime, the economy, gas prices, the border, all going to be key issues heading into November.
Yeah, joining us now for reaction is former Georgia Congressman Jack Kingston. Sir, great to have you this morning. We've got some big news this morning from former presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard. She's leaving the Democratic Party. She'll now be an independent. What do you make of that news?
I think it's huge. You know, Tulsi really was and somewhat is still a rising star in politics, but she was a Democrat rising star, and they had a lot of faith in what she could bring to the party. But she said it best in her statement. She said it has become the party of elitists, extremely wealthy people, and using poor people and minorities to stay in power. And I think she's right. It's no longer the party of the blue collar, which I think traditionally many people still think of it as, but now it's really the elite professors on the elite college campuses and the elite media and Hollywood and people who talk to each other and consider the rest of America flyover country. So I hope she takes the next step and becomes a Republican.
So that's my, I want to talk about Herschel Walker, but I don't think she's going to be the next Ross Perot and run as an independent in a future presidential election. Do you think she's going to ultimately become a Republican, a registered Republican?
I think she could be one of the independents who would caucus with the Republican Party if elected and would side with the Republican Party. But now she doesn't have to subscribe to all the wacky ideas of climate change and abortion on demand for 9 months. And everything's against Donald Trump.
No, that makes sense. People forget that, you know, Angus King up in Maine and Bernie Sanders, they're technically Democrats or independents that just caucus with the Democrats. Maybe she does something like that. But again, I don't know if she runs for president as an independent, but who knows? She's very young. Congressman, I want to talk to you about the Herschel Walker situation, the Senate race down there, Raphael Warnock, Herschel Walker, going to be so important for Republicans if they want to win back the Senate in 28 days. Walker last week accused of paying for an abortion in 2009 with a former girlfriend. Apparently, this is not making huge news in Georgia, but it is national news outside the state. What's your take on this and how it affects that race?
I think the national media is breathless about it. They are so delighted to have a story like this. We in Georgia know, oh, wait, this story comes out in October. Where did that expression come from, October surprise? Where was this woman for the last decade if she was so appalled by Herschel's hypocrisy of going around talking to youth groups? You know, as far as the son goes, people know that there's friction with children, particularly political and high-profile people have problem with their kids. So I think most people are ignoring the unhappiness of his son. The reality is that we do have an open border. It's led to 100,000 people dying of fentanyl overdoses, increased crime in the city. We have a president who calls on dead people. We have an inflation rate of 8%, and the president's begging Venezuela to turn on gas when we're sitting on plenty of it. And if you want to stop that insanity, you need to vote for the opposing team of which Herschel Walker belongs.
Yeah. Congressman, women ran Democrat votes in 2018 midterm elections. You think we're going to see the same in 2022? Because a lot of people, the Democrats specifically, saying abortion is a big issue for them. What do you think is going to happen in 2022?
Well, I think there are going to be a lot of people who are pro-choice, and they're just going to go with pro-choice. But I think there's still a lot of other people who are more concerned about their families safely to crime, the insanity in schools. And we saw that in Virginia, for example, with the election of Glenn Youngkin, that parents need to be in charge of education, not the bureaucracy or the teachers union. And so they also want to see common sense. And what they saw. Yes.
Oh, quickly, I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off. I just want to get your reaction to a quick soundbite. MSNBC says men should vote for Stacey Abrams in Georgia. Take a listen.
I literally have black men calling my radio show saying, well, we've got enough black women in power. You know, Ketanji Brown Jackson's in the Supreme Court. We have Vice President Kamala Harris. I don't know if I want to vote for Stacey Abrams. Who would not be proud of Stacey Abrams unless you are so insecure as a man?
Okay, Congressman, just about 20 seconds. If she loses again here to Governor Kemp, what happens to Stacey Abrams?
Oh, I'm sure Joe Biden will give her some sort of a ambassadorship or maybe even a minor cabinet post. I'm sure Hollywood will continue to put her in movies. She's shown so much talent on Star Trek. But I do have a question. What kind of a man listens to Al Sharpton and calls in? I mean, to me, the whole concept is fascinating. But
that's a good point.
I don't think he's getting Georgians calling him.
Yes, very good point there. All right, Congressman Jack Kingston, great having you back on. Look forward to doing it again soon. Thank you.